Hi and welcome to a cEDh deck tech video for the NAYA, Shalai and Hallar. White, green, red and one generic for a free angel elf with flying and vigilance. But it's the passive ability that is standing out. Whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, Shalai and Hallar deals that much damage to target opponent. Now, traditionally, +1/+1 counters are really bad, historically inside cEDh. That's not really something we're doing here. Like, no one is really trying to play Voltron inside this format. Or, well, some people are, I guess. Trying is the correct word here. But the thing is that this is actually creating a few one-card combos. For example, we have Heliod Sun Crowned. Now, if you give your commander lifelink and you attack with Hallar in the air against someone, you could connect. If they don't have flyers, you will gain life, which will trigger Heliod to put +1/+1 counter on Hallar, which will trigger Hallar. Now that you put a counter on that creature, it will deal damage to someone. Because of lifelink, you're going to gain life, triggering Heliod, and here you have a loop doing infinite damage to your opponent's face. We also have the 40k miniature, the Red Terror. I'm sorry guys, I couldn't resist. Here we have the Magic the Gathering card version for it. Advanced Species. Whenever a red source you control deal damage to one or more permanents and or players, put a +1/+1 counter on the Red Terror. Now the cool thing with Hallar is that it doesn't have to be counters on Hallar for the trigger to happen. Whenever one or more +1/+1 counters are put on a creature you control, Hallar will deal damage, and the Red Terror doesn't need to be the one creating the trigger. Like, whenever a red source, Hallar is a red source, deals damage to a player, doesn't have to be combat damage, just damage, you will have a trigger from the Red Terror, and here you go, infinite. Now, there are a few other examples of one-card combos that will generate the same form of trick, but what we basically have here are NAYA color identities and one-card combos. And that is honestly good. It means that we can easily play the typical NAYA stacks package to interact with your green and white creature to make sure your opponents doesn't win the game. Like, we can't play counter spells in this kind of deck because we don't have a blue, but we still have these kinds of stuff. One thing though, your commander doesn't actually draw cards from the command zone, so the 99 have to solve that problem for you. But in NAYA colors, we already have a lot of different value engines that we could utilize. So your opening hand is basically looking for something that will kick off the game in a great way. This is a good example. So we have Gemstone Caverns for some good speed. We have Endurance for a tiny interaction. It's not great, honestly. This is probably something you could mulligan. But we have a Heliod in the hand, so we just need to get our commander to play Heliod and then win the game. Here we have Walking Ballista and Code of Calling. So if you're able to get Walking Ballista into play and then use Code of Calling to get your Heliod, then you also have a win. Here we have Mana Crypt and Enlightened Tutor. Now you can actually find Heliod with that Enlightened Tutor because he is an enchantment. But then we have Sanctum Prelate for some interaction, Red Elemental Blast for some interaction, and the Birthing Pod for more combo. Using Birthing Pod to basically find your combo. The Rhynite Magistrate, Gaia's Cradle, Tinderwall. It's a pretty good opener. We actually have a turn 1 Rhynite Magistrate here with that Simian Spirit Guide. So that's good. But however, here's a little bit of a problem. Your hand doesn't really contain any form of value engine. Well, stand corrected, you have Enlightened Tutor. So you could actually find Sylvan Library with your Enlightened Tutor on turn 1 and then turn 2 Sylvan Library. But now you have to choose like between Draenite turn 1 or Sylvan Library turn 2. But it's still a good opener. Like, you have value engine here, you have interaction, and you could use Enlightened Tutor to find Heliod. So, like, you can choose value or combo depending on what the situation demands, depending on what your opponents are doing. But our opener and the way we're building our deck basically just need to contain these three things: interaction, card draw, and combo. But because we have that turbo combo speed of just one card combos, sometimes you could have the combo in your hand with something like a Dockside Extortionist. Imagine we're last in turn order and you get a Dockside in play turn 1 or turn 2. That might be the mana, depending on how much artifacts your opponents are feeding you. But if you have an opener something like that contain this, then you don't always need to have value engines and interaction in your hand. It kind of depends. Like, depending on what your opponent and how interactive your opponents are, this could be a perfect hand opener. In other words, the deck will play differently depending on the situation. And that's good. It means that it can pivot. As I mentioned before, a Enlightened tutor can find both Heliod's Uncrowned and Sylvan Library. So depending on how you need to pivot, what form of direction the game is going, you can use it differently. Same thing with Final Devastation. You can find Heliod, it's a creature inside your deck, but you can also find something like Oran Frostfang, and that's a really big card draw engine. You see, tutors are just so good inside this kind of deck, because they will increase the amount of one-card combos you have inside the deck. Because every tutor you have inside the deck that can find Heliod is just another version of a one-card combo Heliod. It's just that it costs 2 more mana. So you could literally look at Final Devastation like a 5 CMC Heliod, which means that we're increasing consistency a lot. And in the end, when you have a whole bunch of different one-card combos, yeah, the commander is usually pretty good. Together with NAYA colors to basically solve the interaction and card drawing problem that the commander doesn't have, then we have something we can build upon. And as always, in the description below of the video, there is a deck list that you can take a look at, built by Pontus. And we also actually have recorded a few gameplay videos with this thing that we're gonna upload on the other YouTube channel, the cEDh gameplay channel, if you wanna take a look at how this one is performing and how it looks like when it's somewhat played. And I have to say, I actually really like it. I should also mention that, like, it doesn't really have to play stacks, kinda depending on. Like, you could include a lot of rituals inside this deck to just increase the turbo combo potential, so to say. I don't know if that's the correct decision to actually go. I think it's risky, because the mana cost to get Heliod, activate Heliod, and make Hallar into a lifelink, also then attacking with Hallar, it's a little bit expensive, a total cost of 9 mana. And if you're tutoring for Heliod, that's a little bit more. But you also need to, in this situation, actually attack with the creature as well. So it's not that easy to turbo it into play, and therefore I think the stacks approach, the interactive control approach, is better, because that is giving you more time to climb up to the mana that you need so you can put win cons into play and win the game. But I definitely think that this is a commander that people should consider bringing to a tournament. It's very hard to say that it's gonna, like, the exact power level for it. Like, we can talk about commanders all we want in theory, but in practice we will see how they actually perform and work out. I think the player skill is really important in this kind of deck, because you really need to, like, predict the future, what's going to happen. Am I gonna keep an opener with a fast combo capacity, or I'm gonna keep an opener with interaction and value engines? So skill is definitely really important in this kind of commander. In any case, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. A short card review and a little bit of a deck tech for a new NAYA commander with a cool combo potential. Take care, guys, and I'll see you next time. More card reviews are coming up, as there are a lot of new commanders to actually take a look at.